The office lights had dimmed hours ago, leaving the space coated in a soft, almost lonely glow. Elena lingered near her desk, scrolling through files she had already reviewed twice, trying to make herself busy. She hated leaving work unfinished, but tonight something felt different, a quiet tension, like the air itself was holding its breath. From across the room, a soft shuffle of papers broke her thoughts. She looked up to see her coworker, Nathan, still seated at his desk, his brow slightly furrowed as he typed. They had worked together for months, exchanged polite greetings and occasional jokes, but tonight the quiet between them felt heavier, almost significant. Elena's curiosity nudged her closer. She had always noticed how Nathan approached his work, deliberate, patient, almost methodical. And yet in the dim light, she could see the tiny hesitations, the small gestures that betrayed a person's inner rhythm. It was oddly mesmerizing. "Burning the midnight oil again?" she asked softly, trying to sound casual, but noticing how her voice seemed louder in the quiet. Nathan looked up, surprised, and offered a small, tired smile. "I guess it's one of those nights," he said. His tone wasn't boastful, not even friendly, just calm and neutral in a way that made Elena want to lean in closer. For a moment, they both returned to their work, the hum of the office computers and the faint tapping of keyboards filling the silence. But the space between them had shifted.
The ordinary quiet of a late work night had turned into something intimate, though neither of them had crossed a line. It was just presence, two people aware of each other in a world otherwise empty. Elena found herself stealing glances at him, noticing the way his hand hovered over the mouse before clicking, the subtle furrow of his eyebrows when a spreadsheet didn't align the way he wanted it to. She had always appreciated detail, and Nathan's quiet dedication to his work had suddenly caught her attention in a way that made her heart feel a little too aware of itself. "You know," she said after a few minutes, "sometimes I think late nights make people more honest, less performative." Nathan paused, fingers resting on the keyboard. "Honest how?" Elena shrugged, leaning back slightly in her chair. "I don't know, just more themselves, I guess. No one else around, no expectations, just real." She caught a flicker in his eyes that made her wonder if he understood exactly what she meant. Nathan smiled faintly, a gesture that didn't reach full amusement but felt genuine. "I think I get that," he said quietly. "It's easier to notice things, or maybe to be noticed." She tilted her head, feeling a strange warmth that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. The conversation was unusual, unplanned, yet it carried a weight that felt significant. Elena realized that for months they had merely coexisted in the office, and now, in this soft, quiet space, there was the hint of connection, a bridge forming without anyone saying it out loud. Minutes passed. Elena found herself laughing quietly at an obscure work mishap, and Nathan's soft chuckle followed. It was not loud, not intrusive, but it filled the room in a comforting way. She had always thought of laughter as a personal thing, but shared in this silence, it felt like acknowledgement, recognition that someone else was really there, really seeing. As she gathered her things to leave, Elena noticed that Nathan was still at his desk, seemingly absorbed in his work. The gentle glow from his monitor illuminated his face, and she felt a strange pang of hesitation. She didn't want to break the spell of this quiet understanding, even if it was fleeting. Pausing by his desk, she said softly, "I'll see you tomorrow then." Nathan looked up, his eyes catching hers, and for a heartbeat the unspoken acknowledgement hung between them, an invisible tether that neither dared to name. "Yeah," he said, voice low but steady. "Tomorrow." As she walked out into the crisp night air, Elena realized how unusual it was to feel both content and restless at the same time. The evening had shifted something subtle but undeniable, a momentary pause in their usual rhythm that hinted at deeper understanding. And somewhere deep in her chest, a soft hope flickered, a hope that the quietness of tonight could somehow linger. If you're enjoying the story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. Walking to her car, Elena glanced back at the office building, wondering if Nathan might also be thinking of the same small, quiet exchange. The thought made her stomach twist with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. She knew that tonight had planted a seed, but neither of them had yet realized just how much it might grow. The next morning, the office felt different to Elena, though nothing had changed outwardly. She arrived early, hoping to catch the quiet calm before the day's usual chaos. But even in the hum of fluorescent lights and early chatter, a subtle tension lingered, as though last night had left a trace in the air. Nathan was already at his desk, sipping coffee and flipping through a stack of reports. When their eyes met briefly, a small, almost imperceptible smile passed between them. It was a quiet acknowledgement, a soft echo of yesterday's midnight exchange. Elena felt her chest tighten, a mixture of anticipation and hesitation. She settled at her desk and tried to focus on her tasks, yet her thoughts kept drifting. She found herself noticing small details: how Nathan's hair caught the morning light, how he adjusted his sleeves before typing, the rhythm of his pen against the notepad. These little observations made her feel curiously awake, as though she were seeing him for the first time beyond the professional shell she had grown used to. Around mid-morning, a sudden problem arose with a client report. Elena noticed Nathan's quick frown as he scanned the screen, and instinctively she leaned over. "Do you need a second pair of eyes?" she asked, her voice careful but warm. Nathan looked at her, a flicker of surprise crossing his features, and then nodded. Yes, that would help. Working side by side, their movements synchronized without effort. She pointed out a minor inconsistency, and he corrected it, then glanced at her with a faint gratitude. There was something unspoken in that shared focus, an acknowledgement that they could rely on each other. Elena felt the strange thrill of connection again, stronger than the previous night. By lunch, they found themselves lingering near the kitchen, coffee in hand, avoiding the rush of colleagues. The conversation was light at first, weekend plans, favorite lunch spots, but gradually it deepened. Nathan shared a story about his sister's recent move, a tale that made Elena laugh softly, her eyes lighting up in a way she hadn't expected. "You're different from what I imagined," he said quietly, his voice carrying a hint of curiosity rather than judgment. Elena tilted her head, unsure if she should respond immediately. "Different how?" He hesitated, then smiled gently. "You notice things, small things,
And you don't rush past them. Most people, they just move through the day." Something warmed in her chest. Few people truly noticed, and fewer still recognized when they did. She felt seen, and that feeling lingered longer than she expected. "Maybe I just pay attention," she said, keeping her tone casual, though inside it felt tender. The day wore on with ordinary tasks, but the undercurrent of their quiet exchange carried a weight that Elena couldn't ignore. Each glance, each fleeting smile, seemed amplified by last night's lingering quiet. She found herself stealing moments to look at him, noticing the subtle expressions that betrayed small bursts of emotion: a raised eyebrow, a thoughtful pause, a fleeting look of satisfaction. By mid-afternoon, a sudden downpour caught the city unprepared. Rain streaked the windows and tapped against the office roof, creating a soft rhythm that wrapped the workspace in a cocoon of muted sound. Nathan looked up from his work, watching the rain silently. Elena, seated across from him, felt compelled to share the moment. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she murmured, more to herself than to him. He nodded, eyes tracing the streaks on the glass. "It is. Makes everything feel slower. Slower." That single word lingered in her mind. It captured the essence of the night, the morning, and now this rain-soaked afternoon. For the first time, Elena realized that the quiet moments, the shared glances, the unspoken words, were shaping something gentle and significant. When the rain lightened, Elena packed her things, feeling a reluctant tension in her chest. She didn't want the day to end, yet she knew it would, carrying them into separate routines. Nathan looked up as she gathered her bag. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked, a hint of question and anticipation blending in his tone. She smiled softly, heart fluttering. "Same time," she replied. The words felt ordinary, yet charged with the memory of midnight quiet and shared presence.
As she stepped out into the drizzle, Elena felt the weight of possibility pressing gently on her chest. The day had shifted something small but vital, a connection built from moments too subtle to name, yet too powerful to ignore. The following evening, Elena found herself lingering at the office again, though this time she arrived with a quiet sense of purpose rather than obligation. The streets outside were calm, the city lights reflecting off wet asphalt from an earlier drizzle. Something about this hour made the world feel softer, slower, more intimate. Nathan was already at his desk when she arrived, engrossed in his work. Their eyes met briefly, and a faint, almost shy smile passed between them. It was unspoken, but it carried the same weight as their earlier exchanges, a subtle acknowledgement of a connection neither had named. Elena settled across from him, pretending to focus on her tasks, but the room's quiet felt like a shared space rather than separate corners. She found herself listening not just to the hum of computers, but to the small sounds of his presence, the gentle scratch of his pen, the soft exhale as he leaned back, the tap of his fingers against a desk that seemed to keep rhythm with the quiet pulse between them. "Do you ever wonder why late nights feel different?" she asked softly, breaking the silence without looking up. Nathan paused, fingers hovering over his keyboard. "Different how?" Elena shrugged, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I don't know. More honest, maybe? Or more open? Less pretending?" He considered this, then nodded slowly. "I think I know what you mean," he said, his voice steady but thoughtful. "When it's quiet, you notice more. Not just your work, but everything else." That word, everything, hung in the air like a soft invitation. Elena felt it, the unspoken understanding that stretched between them. She hadn't expected to feel this kind of closeness with a coworker, yet here it was, delicate and undeniable. A knock on the office door startled them both. It was late, and the custodian peeked in with a small, apologetic smile. "Sorry, I just came to make sure everything's locked down." He waved and left, closing the door quietly behind him. Elena and Nathan shared a brief, amused glance. The interruption, minor as it was, seemed to frame the room as their own small world, temporary and private. She realized that in these fleeting moments, there was space for something rare, quiet recognition of another person's presence, unadorned and honest. They returned to their work, but Elena couldn't resist breaking the stillness again. "Have you ever felt like a single conversation could change your perspective on everything?" she asked. Nathan paused, his pen resting against the notepad. "I have. Sometimes it's not the conversation itself, but the way someone makes you feel understood," he said softly. Her heart gave a little leap. That was exactly it. Last night, this morning, and now, everything felt tethered by tiny moments of understanding, moments that had quietly shifted something inside her. Hours passed in this subtle rhythm, the clock ticking unnoticed. Elena found herself laughing quietly at a small office mishap, and Nathan's soft chuckle echoed hers. It was a gentle, comforting sound, not intrusive, but enough to bridge the space between them. When the workday finally came to a close, Elena packed her bag with a mix of reluctance and anticipation. She hesitated, unsure whether to speak first, when Nathan looked up from his desk. "Do you want to walk a bit together?" he asked, his tone casual, yet carrying the same weight as their quiet exchanges. Elena felt a rush of warmth at the invitation. "I'd like that," she replied softly. They stepped outside into the cool night, the city alive but muted by the late hour. Streetlights painted the sidewalks in gentle pools of gold, and the hum of distant traffic created a soothing backdrop. They walked side by side, not talking at first, just sharing the simple comfort of each other's presence. After a few minutes, Nathan spoke, voice low and reflective. "I think nights like this, they make everything feel simpler. You can notice the little things, the quiet gestures, the moments that really matter." Elena glanced at him, feeling the truth in his words resonate deeply. "Yes," she said softly, "it's like the world slows down just enough for you to see it." They walked a little further in silence, the sound of their steps blending with the night. And yet, Alina felt a tension building beneath the calm, a sense that something was shifting, something neither of them could fully define, but both felt in the quiet heartbeat between them. As they reached the corner where they would part ways, Alina hesitated, caught between the urge to speak and the fear of breaking the fragile spell. Nathan looked at her, eyes calm but attentive, waiting without expectation. And in that moment, the unspoken promise of something more lingered between them, delicate and alive, like a whisper carried on the wind. The following evening, Elena arrived at the office with a quiet anticipation she hadn't expected.
The city outside was cloaked in the soft haze of twilight, and the hum of distant traffic felt like a gentle pulse. She felt that same subtle tension in her chest, the one that had been growing since their midnight conversation, and she wondered if Nathan felt it too. He was already there, seated at his desk, the glow from his monitor illuminating his focused expression. When he noticed her, a small, welcoming smile curved his lips. That smile alone made her heart feel lighter, and she couldn't help but return it. Elena settled across from him, attempting to concentrate on her tasks, but her attention wandered. The quiet between them was no longer awkward. It had transformed into a shared space, one charged with unspoken understanding. She noticed the small gestures that had always been there, his careful adjustments of papers, the faint crease of concentration between his brows, but now they seemed meaningful in a way they hadn't before. "Do you ever feel like some nights are meant to be noticed?" she asked softly, unable to resist breaking the silence. Nathan looked up, eyes thoughtful. "Noticed how?" She shrugged, a faint smile brushing her lips. "Noticed for what they are. Quiet. Unremarkable to others maybe, but important in their own way." He nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on her face. "I understand. Some moments, they feel like they're meant to stay with you, even if you don't talk about them." Elena felt a warmth spread through her chest.
It was comforting, that unspoken acknowledgement, and it made her feel seen in a way she hadn't realized she'd been longing for. Their shared silence spoke volumes, carrying a gentle intimacy without words. The workday moved forward, punctuated by small exchanges, a question about a report, a soft laugh over a misplaced file, but beneath it all, the quiet connection lingered, unbroken. Elena felt the minutes stretch and fold, each one deepening the sense of closeness she had begun to recognize. During a brief lull, she glanced at Nathan, noticing the way his eyes softened when he focused on her, as if he were searching for something unspoken. "Do you ever think about how fleeting moments like this are?" she asked. He looked at her, thoughtful, then smiled gently. "I do. And yet, they feel significant, don't they, even if they're brief?" Elena nodded, her fingers tapping lightly against the desk. She realized that every subtle exchange, every quiet glance, had been layering itself into something more, something neither of them could fully define yet, but both sensed in their shared rhythm. The evening wore on, and eventually the office emptied except for them. The dim glow of monitors and desk lamps gave the room a hushed, intimate quality. Elena felt a mixture of contentment and restlessness, the same feeling she had experienced during their midnight conversations, now amplified by the quiet night.
As she packed her things to leave, she felt the familiar hesitation, the desire to linger without overstepping the delicate balance of their connection. Nathan looked up from his desk as she moved toward the door. "Would you like to walk a bit again?" he asked quietly, his tone carrying a gentle familiarity now. Elena's chest lifted with warmth. "I'd like that," she replied softly. Outside, the night was crisp and still, the city lights reflecting faintly off the wet pavement from a passing rain. They walked side by side, not speaking at first, simply sharing the rhythm of footsteps and the soft hum of the city around them. The quiet was comfortable, almost sacred. After a few minutes, Nathan spoke, his voice low and reflective. "It's strange how the simplest moments can feel so heavy with meaning. Just walking,
just talking, yet it feels like more. Elena glanced at him, feeling the weight of his words resonate deeply. Yes, she said softly. It's like the world slows down and suddenly you notice everything that matters. They walked further, the air around them filled with quiet understanding, when a soft gust of wind rustled the leaves nearby. Elena felt a subtle shiver, not from cold, but from the awareness of how much these nights, these moments, were reshaping the way she saw everything around her. As they neared the corner where they would part, Elena felt a tug of hesitation, a longing to preserve the quiet intimacy just a little longer.
Nathan noticed, his gaze calm but expectant, and she realized that the tension between them had grown more tangible. Something was building, delicate yet undeniable, suspended in the shared silence. And as they finally said goodnight, Elena felt the quiet pulse of possibility, an invisible thread connecting them, fragile but persistent, promising that the next encounter might shift everything further. The office felt unusually still that night, almost as if it were holding its breath. Elena arrived, carrying the quiet anticipation that had become part of her routine. Each step toward her desk made her aware of the subtle tension she had come to recognize, one that had grown slowly over the past week. Nathan was already there, seated at his desk, the soft glow of his monitor illuminating his thoughtful expression. When their eyes met, a small, genuine smile passed between them, the kind that carried months of unnoticed familiarity, yet also hinted at something new. Elena felt her chest tighten, a mixture of comfort and curiosity swirling inside her. Tonight, the usual tasks felt lighter, almost secondary. She found herself glancing at him more often, observing the faint movements, the careful way he handled his papers, the rhythm of his typing. Their previous conversations, their quiet walks, and the unspoken connection had shaped an invisible space that now defined the evening. "You've been quiet today," Nathan said softly, looking up from his work.
Elena hesitated, then smiled. "I've been thinking about how much these nights change things, even if it's small, subtle." He nodded, understanding. Yes, small changes can be the most lasting, I think. They linger in ways we don't always notice at first. Their words hung between them, the gentle acknowledgement of everything unspoken filling the room. It was more than routine office chatter. It was recognition, a shared understanding that each of them had begun to feel something delicate and rare. Minutes passed, and Elena realized she had been holding her breath. The quiet moments stretched and folded in on themselves, a rhythm that seemed to belong entirely to them. She felt a strange combination of peace and tension, a realization that these shared nights had shifted something profound within her. Nathan stood slowly, stretching after hours of work. "Do you want to walk a bit again, before heading out?" he asked, the familiarity of the question now carrying an ease that made it feel like tradition. Elena's heart lifted. "I'd like that," she replied softly, gathering her things. Outside, the city was calm, illuminated by streetlights that reflected on damp sidewalks from a recent drizzle. They walked side by side, not speaking at first, letting the quiet guide them. Each step seemed measured, purposeful, yet light. There was an intimacy in the silence, a comfort that had grown over time and would not easily fade.
After a few minutes, Nathan spoke, voice low and reflective. "I think these nights, they've shown me more than I expected, about work, about people, about noticing the moments that matter." Elena glanced at him, the words resonating deep inside. "Yes, and I think I've realized the same, that even ordinary nights can carry meaning if you pay attention." A gentle smile passed between them, a shared acknowledgement that these nights had become more than just time spent together. They had created a quiet bond, one built on observation, understanding, and small gestures that grew significant with each passing hour. They paused at a familiar corner, the point where their paths would normally separate. Elena felt a pang of reluctance. The night had become a space she didn't want to leave, a pocket of connection that seemed almost fragile in its perfection. Nathan looked at her, his gaze steady yet kind,
as if he too felt the weight of what had developed between them. "I'm glad we've had these nights," he said quietly. "It's rare, I think, to find someone who notices without needing everything spelled out." Elena felt a warmth bloom in her chest. "Me too," she whispered, "more than I realized." For a moment, they simply stood there, breathing in the quiet of the city and the subtle, unspoken bond that had grown between them. It was not dramatic or flashy, but it was profound, a connection made of attention, presence, and small moments that together created something lasting.
Finally, Elena turned to leave, but not before exchanging one last glance with Nathan. It carried no words, yet said everything. The acknowledgement of shared mites, mutual understanding, and the quiet promise that these moments were only the beginning. As she walked toward her car, Elena felt a rare peace, a sense that the League's midnight exchanges had shifted more than just evenings. They had shifted perspective, shaped awareness, and quietly had drawn two people closer without fanfare or declaration. The city hummed softly around her, but inside, Elena carried the quiet knowledge that some connections are made in the silence, in the ordinary, in the moments we almost overlook. And for her and Nathan, this was just the beginning of a bond that would continue to grow, gentle, subtle, and enduring. The night had ended, but its echo lingered, a soft warmth that promised more shared moments to come.